Hey there, on today's episode we're going to be talking about AWS security solutions and what they have offerings. To start with, we'll start with Guard Duty. So Guard Duty, what is it? Essentially, this is your bread and butter security. It's a solution there that keeps your console safe. It's overlooking all API calls and activities and flagging anything it thinks is either suspicious or a threat to you. This includes things like, SSH, brute forces, so to speak, people lifting S3 buckets to the internet randomly. Basically, it's got this huge data set that it's going to be reviewing, and anything it finds suspicious or anything that should be actionable, it will flag and alert. And it's a super simple, awesome solution that anyone running the AWS, if you haven't got security platforms in place, this should be your bare minimum to enable it. Next is Detective. So Detective is kind of like an overlay of Guard Duty, I find. Once you've got your Guard Duty set up, you'll get these alerts. How you respond to these alerts will come from two different matters. Either you forward all your logs to your SIEM solution, or you do it in-house. So this is kind of a native platform. What Detective will do is, once you're in your alert for Guard Duty, you can drill down into specific events. With these events, you can see, correlate them together and see what actually happened. It's just a super simple way of someone getting all the information and bringing it to your desk, rather than having your SOC analysts go through the logs and look through them themselves. It's a really sweet product. It's not something that I would say is a requirement. It's so if perhaps you didn't have a SOC or such, and you wanted an easier way to find out what it is Guard Duty is exactly flagging to you. Next is Inspector. So vulnerability management is key nowadays. You see all those CVEs being shared on Twitter, those POCs, whatnot. This is Inspector. So Inspector is kind of like your Qualys, your vulnerability management scanner. It will look through your whole platform and see anything that it finds criticals, highs, mediums, lows, and flag them. It will also kind of help with prioritization as well. Showing you links to CVE records and such, so you can find out a bit more information. Also gives you descriptions as well and how to fix these problems. It's a really good tool, so if you don't run vulnerability management through any other platform like a third-party solution, it definitely is something to consider. Config is sort of like your governance team. It is looking at your platform and seeing your configuration, see if it matches to your standards. So you set this up, you go into your config and you set this up, and you kind of set and try and get your configuration to basically to standard state. And what config will do is record those changes. So if say something happened and you were like, oh, whoa, who's changed these? Who's making these changes? Or who's lifted that on the internet? If you didn't have those other platforms and you did have config, you've got a fighting chance, so to speak. It will basically keep your compliance and your history to say, X changed this on this day, this time, what they did, and then reference exactly. It's a really sweet tool. It can be used for incident response or just day-to-day troubleshooting. It's definitely something to consider on the belt. Shield is more specific. It's a networking, so it's kind of the DDoS protection that you get. Again, it is limited. It really depends on your company if you want to go down these routes. There are different variations of it. Again, if you feel like you're a targeted solution or you need your availability high, then Shield is perhaps an option for you. Again, there's different services, so in terms of cost, but yeah, it's a simple one. It's your DDoS protection. CloudTrail. Now this is a biggie. So CloudTrail is basically all your logging, your monitoring, so to speak. It is technically a security platform because this is something you can forward into your SIEM solution as well. Most platforms integrate straight off the bat. So CloudTrail is essentially the activity in the consoles and the APIs. Who's making changes, who's doing this, what's it doing exactly, and logging pretty much everything. And this is going to be used for incident response. It also feeds into Guard Duty to be able to, view those logs and create these alerts and spot threats, essentially. And that's what CloudTrail is doing. It's giving you this. So if a month ago something happens, you go through these logs, you can tell exactly, what happened, who made the calls, when, etc. And Detective, again, is an overlay of all of those, just to go back to that. you're drilling down into these sort of logs, so to speak, just to easy methods. Now, CloudWatch not to be confused with CloudTrail. CloudTrail is your management, your API platforms and activities. CloudWatch is more application logging, so to speak. However, you can forward multiple logs, such as server access logs and such, into CloudWatch. CloudWatch is great because it's sort of like having a SIEM solution or a query, or kind of like a log analytics workspace if you've used Azure. You get all your logs in there, you create your log groups, and you can query them directly through CloudWatch. I find that great. It's really quick, simple tooling. Do have to learn the log formats and such in the querying, but it's a really sweet solution if you want to do in-house, like monitoring, so to speak. You can forward all your logs. You use them for application testing, troubleshooting from a business point of view, or security. Pretty neat tool, to be honest. Can get complex because you can log everything, because then it becomes this huge thing. But if you do it right, it's a pretty sweet solution. And this is where you would do your VPC logs as well. So when you're doing your network response and you're saying, who touched what, they would fall into CloudWatch. And there you go. Security Hub. So Security Hub is kind of like, don't worry, I'll bring everything into one area for you. It's a simple way to basically sort your prioritization out, seeing what holes you need to fix, immediately. And it's just not looking at just resources. It will look at your IAM access and accounts, and basically say you need to look at these in this order. And it will also give you benchmarks as well, like the CSI benchmark and the AWS benchmark, and see where you true up against policy standards. I think you can also do PCI as well if you enable it. So it's a really simple, nice tool to bring everything into one place, to prioritize it and see how you are adding up into the world. Macy is more unique. It's for your data governance, so to speak. It's got to be scanning for everywhere and trying to find sensitive information, so to speak. Again, is more specific. It's kind of like a platform that's just for your governments. If you want to do data security as a platform, and DLP, you kind of want to know where your sensitive information is first. So this is one of those tools that can scan everything and say, oh, here you go, here's everything. IT Defender, again, is another bespoke service if you want to run it, so to speak. I know several IoT devices just plonk them on the network. We score them with network isolation. But here is a product. I guess AWS is doing it, or most cloud providers are doing it now, because of the sheer log scalability and processing power they have to query these logs. It's better to do it in-house than it is to buy a on-premise, so to speak. It's better to do it in-house. When I say in-house, in their cloud. So rather than build a solution yourself, run the infrastructure, which would be huge, because these logs, IoT devices, spit out a lot of logs, and you'll need the processing power to query them. So instead, you can use this platform, and it will add different layers on top to protect them, so to speak. Again, it's bespoke because not everyone would want to do it, and network isolation, and as long as you've got the logs, will do. But yeah, it's one of those solutions that you could consider. And thanks for watching. Do like and subscribe, and if you have any feedback, feel free to comment. Thank you.